Have you ever wondered if nighttime business class flights are worth splurging on, especially the short to medium haul ones? I think it's fairly obvious that anything longer is generally worth the extra cash for the comfort it will give you during those red eye hours. Also, if you're flying for business or work, then it's necessity rather than choice. So we're talking flying for leisure. But specifically, if you're flying to destinations under 5 hours away on a red eye flight, is the extra expense justified? Well, this is what I set to explore on this Cathay Pacific business class flight from Delhi to Hong Kong on board their most advanced aircraft, the A350-900. So let's understand this route and the flight options available to you a bit better. We're not talking about connecting flights here, rather direct flights between the two cities. Straight away you will see that just like flights from Delhi to Bangkok, there are only a limited number of airlines offering direct flights. You can choose between Air India, Indigo and Cathay Pacific. And only Air India and Cathay Pacific offer business class flights. Indigo operates the narrow body A321 on this route. So the choices are down to Air India's 787 or Cathay's 777-300ER and the A350-900s. The AI 787 is the older 222 configuration that I reviewed previously, links in the description. So that leaves us with Cathay's much more modern offerings, especially in the A350. What's common to all these flights is that they include some element of nighttime flight, either by departing at 1 a.m. or early morning, meaning you get to spend the wee hours at the airport, or even late night arrivals into Hong Kong. Either way, you're guaranteed the red-eye experience. So anyway, I chose CX694 that departs Delhi at 1 a.m. and arrives around 9 a.m. Hong Kong time. This means reaching the airport before 11 p.m. In essence, you're spending the entire night at the airport or on the plane. Well, the Cathay Pacific business class ticket grants you access to the Encom Privy Lounge at Delhi's T3.
We begin today's journey in the Encom Privy Lounge at Delhi's Terminal 3. So we're headed to Hong Kong on Cathay Pacific's A350, the business class cabin. So join me for this hopefully comfortable flight, a red-eye flight, albeit.
The lounge is quite large and is quite ostentatious compared to the other Encom lounge next to the food courts. But lounges nowadays have been completely commoditized, and the food here to me feels no more special than any other lounge. Anyway, having spent the extra hours, it's time to board the aircraft. On board, I find a 2/3 empty business class cabin that has the reverse herringbone 1-to-1 layout. The seats have wings at eye level that provide a modicum of privacy. I've always liked the color theme of Cathay Pacific, and this seat continues that green tradition. There's no one in the middle row next to me, which means this will be a nice and private experience. This A350-900 is 8 years old at the time of this flight and features 38 business class seats besides 28 in premium economy and 214 economy seats. You're greeted with all the seat amenities when you arrive, and the menus and storage compartment with your noise-cancelling headphones and vanity mirror are open for your attention. The amenities kit by Bamford, the British lifestyle brand, feels very premium, as it should, and the pouch itself is eminently reusable, as I have been doing since I got it on this flight. You will also find your bedding and a pair of slippers at the far end of the footwell. There's a fair bit of storage space, and one of the larger ones next to the window reveals the pillow. Most of the seat is in great condition and impeccably clean, but there is some wear visible next to the latch for the storage space on the fabric itself. Now coming to the menus, this is where the cracks on this type of red-eye flight start to appear. Arguably, the dining experience is key to business class flying for a lot of people, but all that this flight will offer in terms of food is breakfast, and that too a fairly simple affair. You do get a good selection of alcoholic drinks if that takes your fancy at this hour, but the way this flight operates is with the assumption, and rightly so, that most people have already had dinner and are ready to turn in for the night. So after you get served your welcome beverage when you arrive, the whole focus of the flight is on getting up in the air and dimming the lights and making things conducive to sleep. Nothing wrong here, since that's what everyone looking to do at 2 a.m. So let's consider the sleeping arrangements themselves. There was no turn-down service on this flight, and the bed had to be made up yourself. There are simple and intuitive controls that turn the seat into a flat bed, and then you can use the bedding provided to make this into a comfy-looking bed. Alas, for me, the sleeping experience was not great. It's mostly to do with the lack of width on this seat for people with taller or larger frames. It makes me wonder whether in our quest for privacy, have we sacrificed too much of the seat space when converted into a bed? I mean, on Air India's older 787, you have no privacy from your co-passenger, but the seats themselves are wider and straight instead of angled. So the end result for me was a sleepless night on this fairly empty business class cabin. The narrow footwell makes tossing and turning difficult, and I found it especially difficult to get up and out from this seat. I'm surprised that this seat is known as one of the better and wider reverse herringbones out there. That means I had plenty of time to appreciate the maps and cameras to check the flight progress. And these are excellent, by the way. From looking at ground staff at Delhi Airport via the cockpit view to toggling between Aircraft 360 and World Explorer views during the flight, you will find plenty of information and advanced animation showing you the flight progress. I was hooked to the cockpit view from the landing gear during the takeoff. I was too red-eyed to look at the IFE and so simply chose to relax instead, even though I could hardly sleep. There was free Wi-Fi available on the flight and it was surprisingly usable. Upload and download speeds were around 4 Mbps, and that meant I could even play back the feed from my CCTV back home. It was truly one of the speedier aircraft Wi-Fi systems I had ever experienced. And if you need connectivity during the flight, you will not be disappointed here. Breakfast was served around 5 am Indian time or around 7:30 am Hong Kong time, which means about an hour and a half before arrival. Mind you, this was the only meal on the flight. I chose the red pepper and leek omelette, which was served with a chicken croquette, creamed spinach stuffed in tomato, and some roasted potato. To go with this, there was a croissant, a paratha, and a bun. We also got some cornflakes and fresh fruit. So as you can see, a good variety, but nothing that screams exclusivity or premiumness. You can pretty much get the same experience in premium economy and, dare I say, with an omission or two even in economy. Sure, the presentation may be simpler, but it tastes and feels no different. Before long, it was time to descend into the western waters of Hong Kong and Chep Lap Kok Airport. If you haven't been to Hong Kong before, it's quite a spectacular arrival. You descend into the emerald green waters and line up for the runway at Hong Kong International Airport. I was once again following our landing closely through the windows and on the landing gear mounted camera. It was quite a spectacular early morning arrival into Hong Kong. crew was efficient but absent for most part of the flight, owing to the sleep first theme of this flight. In fact, this was one flight where I had the least amount of interaction with the flight crew. So coming to my main conundrum, is it worth splurging on such late night, red-eye, medium haul business class flights? Based on my experience here, it's hard to recommend it unless you're cashing in your reward points. There is no single aspect of this flight that warrants great expense. There is no sense of occasion despite such a modern aircraft. The seats may look and feel private, but they offer varying degrees of comfort when in bed mode depending on your body type. It certainly is more comfortable than flying in economy, but premium economy could make for a good alternative in this case. Arriving into Hong Kong International Terminal was nothing short of a battle at this time, at least initially. They have a large number of arrival counters that were yet to open when our flight started to queue for this, and that meant queuing up for more than half an hour. So bear this in mind if your flight arrives before 9 am. And it's the same queue for business class, so your business class flight will not save you time if you arrive here at an odd hour. As I headed onto the express train for Tsim Sha Tsui and onto the culinary delights of Hong Kong, I couldn't help but think about the experience I had on this business class A350 flight with Cathay. For no fault of the hard or the soft product, the flight felt clinical and mundane. With red-eye flights, that's the nature of the beast. Unfortunately, on this route, it's a necessary evil. Cathay Pacific's A350 is still perhaps the best way to fly here direct, but sometimes the flight timing makes all the difference. I look forward to flying this same product during the daytime sometime soon, but until then, please consider subscribing if you found this content useful. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.